today I want to, because look, social cohesion is something that we should all be involved in, and we should all talk about. My topic discusses the question of what I call the culture of racial and ethnic profiling of the other, which is very, very common. We may not even know it is common, but we all participate in it. We all are involved in profiling of the other. And we do this unconsciously, but continually. The issue here, and so this is a topical issue. How many of you here are history students? How many of you here are students in the social sciences? Good. How many of you are sociology students? Political science? All right, sorry. You want me to leave? So today, I want to ask you a basic question. Is social cohesion possible in Guyana? In a country whose everyday life is consumed by the culture of racial and ethnic divisions, on gender divisions, on the constant and the increasing predatory behavior of men over women, on the disrespect for the rights to equal humanity of indigenous peoples, and other forms of profiling of the other. These are very, very pertinent questions. They're pertinent given the nature of private and public relations in Guyanese society. Mark my word, private and public relations in Guyanese society. Relations that are organized around enclaves, ethnic enclaves, gender enclaves, different kinds of enclaves, religious enclaves, whose private sphere produces private social discourses. Private social discourses and relations within which profiling and dehumanization of otherness is commonplace and hence is taken for granted. What do I mean by that? You go to an Indian home, they only look at certain television channels. You go to African people's home, they only look at certain television channels. But what is always striking is not the channels they look at, but is the conversation, is the racism that is involved in the language that we use, which we don't even know. That we are in our private sphere, that we are behaving in a racial manner. I laugh all the time when I'm here, when I visit people's homes, because racism is not that public thing. It's very, very private. Gender discrimination is very, very private. I was shocked when in the last elections in the United States, I saw so many Guyanese men supporting Mr. Trump. And I said, wow, the inner sanctum of the soul is coming out. Misogyny, the misogyny that is in the culture is part of that reason for support. There can't be any other reason. Let us ponder for a moment on some of the basic elements that make up the private sphere within these so-called enclaves. Guyanese humanity is divided into a hierarchical category attached to skin color. That is closeness to whiteness and blackness. I'm surprised all the time when I see girls using whitening solution. Why are girls who are so beautiful have to use whitening solutions? And it happens. Guyanese humanity is seen through the prism of race, ethnicity, gender, rigidity of division based on men and women roles, sexuality, disrespect and non-acceptance of sexual diversity, difference between indigenous and coast, inhumane treatment and racialization of indigenous peoples as buck people. It's a racial term. So people generally do what they like with indigenous peoples. and especially women. Look around, go to any bar, rum shop. Who you find? Indigenous women there. What are they doing there? These things I observe when I come here. We also discriminate based on place of origin. We're divided into black and Indian. Coastal people versus people in the hinterland. Black, Indian, Portuguese, Chinese, Doggla, and so forth. Guyanese humanity is seen and divided into belief systems. That is, who is closest to God, and which religion is more important and have more currency. When I was growing up as a child in this society, I used to be able to go to any jag, any Christian church, participate in everything that the Christians did, that all religions did. Many Muslim children today don't do that. Many Hindu children don't do that. We, as students, these are the reflections that we have to be engaged in. Added to this mix of divisions in the society is the place of class. Always remember that class, every society is a class society. The gravitation and evolution of a class of moneyed people from all of these groupings. An evolution of a class of money people from all of these groupings. These money people call the political shots. They are the people who call the political shots. And reap the benefits of the systems which enables the regeneration of divisions in the society. So whether the money people belong to the PNC or the PPP, or any political party or any group, they are calling the shots in the society because it is that class that controls power regardless of who is in power in the society. These elements present the basic building blocks which fuel the internal, what I would call nocturnal, or behind-the-scenes factors which drive ethnic politics and its constant, incessant renewal in moments of heightened political activity and civic and social mobilization. In Guyana, almost every activity, organized and unorganized, are measured in ethnic terms, in racial terms, in religious terms, based on which party you belong to, which party you're allied to. By who you are, by your race, your religion, and where you're coming from, how you think. Hence, every strike since the 1970s has been deemed political. Every organized action by workers, which should be respected, are deemed political. You know, I have a way I operate because I was a trade unionist in my youth here. I walked out from the National Park in 1979 with CCW. And I have never crossed the picket line because I respect the right of workers to demand better wages and conditions. But in our country, every strike is political, and because of the clan we each belong to, we fall into that language. I'm asking students to desist from that approach. Every protest is viewed with suspicion, whether it is a picket, a march, a letter you write to a president, a deputation to an authority office, or what have you. Everything is consumed in the cauldron of racial and political motive. People are viewed as either being for or against. Our society is caught up in this culture of dehumanization. Dehumanization of otherness consumes our society. We no longer see the good and recognize each other for what we bring to the discourse, to the discussion, to the conversation. We are all viewed with suspicion. I'm viewed with suspicion all the time. What's my motive? As such, behind-the-scenes maneuvers are ever present. People get away with asking questions of leaders of political parties, such as why, and I quote, why put this coolie man there? Why put this black man there? Why put this black man there? Why put this Portuguese man there? And so forth in position. And I quote again. This is a true story, right? Don't you think we're giving them too much power? They go to leaders of political parties and say, don't you think you're giving them too much power? You have to end this kind of stuff. Only the other day I was confronted with a shocking revelation. My friend is an intellectual, is a prominent man, he's always in the newspaper, I'm going to tell you who he is. Right? A friend of mine told me a story where someone of similar ethnicity to him complained that the grouping to which the person was a leader had put a member in position of authority who, in the words of the complainer, was stopping them, that is persons from the other ethnic group, from accessing money. Everything is about patronage. There is hardly and rarely any pushback from leaders against racial talk, because by doing that, their position in the organization will be threatened. As a society, we pay lip service to the racialization of the indigenous people as Buck, for instance. There are constant spillover of private suspicions of the other from the private to the public spheres. It is time that we recognize our reality. And now what is that reality? If we were to be the fly on the wall in the homes of people in our enclave communities, we would understand the root of the cultural divide. We would understand that the racial divisions we face have become a deep-seated cultural problem, or racial problem is now becoming a culture, a subculture. People normally attack me when I say that, but I will continue to say that. We will understand that we have a cultural problem. Our young people have been socialized and are being socialized to view other ethnic groups in racial and derogatory terms. And this socialization is produced not in the public sphere, but in the homes, in the private sphere. This spills over into the public sphere and naturally becomes the driver for political mobilization. They feed each other, and as the society evolves, deep-seated racial divisions are structured and is regenerated. The theme of this discourse is called the Blueprint for Transformed Guyana, ideas from the social sciences. From a social science standpoint, the path for transformation should come through understanding and analysis of the evolutionary path that brought us to this point. I have argued elsewhere that we will only develop if we emerge from the senseless divisions that bottles up our innovative capacities. To emerge from the senseless divisions, we must first re-engage with history. That's why I asked how many students in here were history students. We cannot shy away from the hard issues. Racism, for instance, is systematized in our society. To make sense of how systematized racism has evolved and how it regenerates, we must have sustained conversations on our history. We tend to constantly whistle past the graveyard. We must each of us face hard questions. Personally, I am tired of being viewed as an East Indian, as a Tuli boy. We should all yearn to be viewed as Guyanese of equal worth. We must personalize the discourse about racial production and reproduction and the seeds of division. We have a duty to constantly look at history, not as East Indians, Africans, and Amerindian intellectuals, but as intellectuals. As intellectuals, we must develop unbiased discourses. Unbiased discourses that are lacking in this society. We have to be conscious, and I'm going to quote Walter Rodney. Rodney points out that there should be no doubt that racial conflict fed racialism and vice versa. He goes on to explain that in our discourses, we must understand all the other interconnections that serve to produce the racial conundrum that consumes the society. Therefore, he argues that simple and definitive explanations must give way to a Guyanese mass movement of the relationship between racial consciousness and racial prejudice, between economic competition and racial conflict, between communal identification and class objectives. Let us ponder on what Rodney is saying. Basically says, what occurred in the period after 1955, 1955 is a landmark moment in our history. What occurred after the period after 1955 was that communal awareness was for various reasons turned inward to exacerbate racial contradictions among the Guyanese workers and peasants. He continued, and this is Walter Rodney I'm quoting. I say exacerbate because racial conflict in Guyana was an inevitable concomitant of the fact that indentured labor, East Indian, Chinese, and Portuguese, was conceived. Indentured labor was conceived specifically. Those who are Indians in the room, please note, and Africans in the room, please note. Indentured labor was conceived specifically to break the back of Negro opposition to the planter class. Throughout the decades after Indian immigration began in 1838, there were differences over wages between racial groups on the sugar estates, brought about by the deliberate policy of the planters of playing one group against another. That's the colonial mentality. The colonial mentality is still with us. The major parties still mobilize in ethnic communities. When the racial parties mobilize and draw their leaders from ethnic communities, it is the colonial mentality at work. Like Rodney, I argue that we would only emerge out of this darkness when we become conscious of the relationship between racial consciousness and racial prejudice, between economic competition and racial conflict, between communal identification and class objectives. Then and only then would social cohesion become possible. Social cohesion cannot come about because we have a Ministry of Social Cohesion. We have a duty to shine a spotlight, and I like what Mr. Granger has done. Talk about social cohesion and establish a Ministry of Social Cohesion. But the ministry seems to know nothing from head to foot of what social cohesion is all about. So we have a duty to shine a spotlight on the political system that produces political parties and leaders who profit from the colonial structure and the colonial mentality, and who thrive on and help to foster the culture which is pregnant with the construct that there is profit by playing one group against another. As intellectuals and budding intellectuals, we have to be nimble enough. We have to understand, we have to figure out and learn from our history to ascertain why every attempt at social cohesion either withered away and or failed. Today time does not permit me to discuss every moment and each attempt in our history. But those who came before did yearn for social cohesion. That is, due recognition, respect, and deference between individuals and groups of the humanity of each other. That is what social cohesion is. When we look at our history, what do we find? For the purpose of today's discourse, I point to 3 periods of intense movement of the working people of Guyana, which showed innate capacity to recognize each other's humanity, to act in unison for the good of the nation. These are represented by the labor unrest on the sugar estates among workers in Georgetown between 1896 and 1905. Go and Google the 1905 rebellion in Guyana. Go and Google the sugar strikes carried out by the indentured workers. Secondly, participation of the working people of all races in the election victory of the People's Progressive Party in 1953. You know, the PNC and the PUP belonged to the same party, the PUP, in 1953, and then they split away. Thirdly, and this is very important, because this history is not written yet. Nigel Westmoss, a historian, is writing this history. Thirdly, is the bold insertion of multiracial political mobilization by the pre-Working People's Alliance and the Working People's Alliance from 1992 to from 1972 to 1992. Outside of these periods, political and civic associations and forces, class and race-based, have tended to and have succeeded in pulling the society and working peoples apart. This is best characterized through the reasons and events that led to the split of the PPP national movement of 1953, out of which emerged the two political behemoths, the PPP and the PNC, whose base of mobilization, potency, and leadership is drawn from and reside in specific ethnic communities, out of which emerged the ethnic racial riots of the 1960s and the constancy of ethnic racial tensions in periods of heightened political and national activities in Guyana, out of which emerged the practice of rigging of elections. Hence, interferences in elections, cases in point are 1968, 1973, 1978, 1980, and 1985. Interferences to produce governmental advantage over political power and to place the levers of the state in the hands, basically, of one ethnic racial group. We must be cognizant of the impact of these developments on the socialization towards a political culture that breeds suspicion of the other. We cannot shy away from this discourse. We must learn from them. Learning from them would be a means towards strengthening our resolve to produce a responsible, non-racial political culture. Students, go and Google Francis Drake's Kimani Nehusi, who has written on these issues. Go and Google UC Guyana. Google the works of Nigel Westmus, and you will be able to learn about what I just told you. What could be social cohesion for Transform Guyana? Can we emerge from the narrow lane? I argue that social cohesion is possible, but to realize this possibility, we must find ways to help our population to en masse. We must find ways to help our population to en masse. To be very frank, the bridles, our population have bridles, they're like horses and donkeys. I'm not calling people donkeys and horses. But they have bridles on. They walk in that narrow lane. To en masse, these bridles have to come off. Some ideas on how we can help. So what should an approach for social cohesion for transformation look like? Firstly, there should be conscious and sustained education. History must be taught at the University of Guyana. History must be taught in every school in this country. The real history of the country, not the history written in some of the history books that we're reading. Not the history written by the colonial masters. Not the history as told from the view of the planter and the ruling classes. Walter Rodney said, then and only then will we be able to achieve transformation, because we will become an educated people. That's why he was killed. He was killed because he brought these ideas. Let us have programs such as conversations with history. Professor Vereen Shepard, who came here recently at the University of Guyana, I saw it online. She spends her Saturday going into the communities in Jamaica, in Kingston, and having conversations with history with the people that are broadcast live. We can emulate that here in Guyana. Let us use as a guide the examples of labor and political struggles of workers and the people acting in unison. Namely, as I said, the 1886 to 1905 riots. What happened in 1953? The united work of the African Society for Cultural Relations with Independent Africa, Austria, headed by Brother UC Guyana, after he left the PNC. after he broke with racial politics. And the work with the Indian Political Revolutionary Associates, headed by Moses Bhagwan, and they did this work between 1970 and 1974 in what they call the Race Commission. Now, I printed this off, and I only made 5 copies to show you what they were doing. The joint activities of Austria and ISPRA and the stewardship of the WPA are living examples that as a society we can develop cohesiveness. Without cohesion, as Walter Rodney tells us, transformation will forever be elusive. Mark my word. I'm quoting Walter Rodney here. Conversations, we should have open conversations on race and racism. Let the people speak their mind openly on national television, in communities. What did Australia and ISPRA do? They went on the East Coast villages. They did not have conversations in Buxton separate from conversations in Annandale, or conversations in BV separate from LBI. They called both communities together on the dividing line, on the sideline dam, and had open conversations. Now we can understand why more than 30,000 people from the East Coast marched behind the body of Walter Rodney from Buxton to Georgetown when he was assassinated on June 23rd, 1980. It's because of that work to build social cohesion. So there is need for open and frank conversation on race and racism in Guyana. We need empowered conversations. We need to end top-down decision-making in this country. We have to involve people in catchment communities on issues and formulation of policies that inform and consume their lives and well-being. Why is there no substantial national discourse with the people on the future of sugar? Tell me. Why are all these discussions at the top when it's the people at the bottom who are facing the brunt of this problem? This is a missed opportunity. I just give the eulogy at the funeral of Hafiz Rahman, who has written volumes to the president on why they should have open conversations on the future of sugar. Fell on their ears. Lives and livelihoods of both major ethnic groups, from Tushin on the east bank of Essequibo to Crabble Creek on the Quarantine, is consumed by the history and evolution of sugar. I've asked myself why there is little attempt at mobilization of discourse on the future economic health of these communities. The world, for instance, is making a turn towards healthy eating and organic foods. And although we are searching for possibilities of transformation, we are not involving the communities in the search for solutions based on healthy eating and organic foods. Social cohesion can only be produced through real engagements with people on real issues. Is there a sustained national discourse on the stewardship of the environment? How many of you read the Standard News yesterday? Nobody? You know, when I was at university, I read all the newspapers before coming to school in the morning. The reading the newspapers should be what you do. I asked you whether you read the Sabbath News because I have a self-interest in it. There's an article in it, in the diaspora column in the Sabbath News. I wrote it. On the environmental destruction, the poison that will come to the Rupununi if the policies that is being pursued is pursued. You have to free. That is why we do research. I could write on these things because I research and I'm passionate about it. I understand the science. Go and read the Sabbath News. We have an oil boom coming. Suppose there is a disaster. Who will suffer when there is an oil spill? Not ExxonMobil. You will suffer. Look at how many young people are getting cancer now. There was a spill at Omar Gold Mines where the cyanide ponds overflew. In the early 1990s, contaminating the rivers. I was involved in the protest against that. Oh my. We have to be conscious as young people, because we are living here. And we have to engage in these discourses. What about chemicals in the foods we eat? How many of you eat processed foods? It's very bad for you. Look at the labels. Processed foods contain something called corn fructose syrup, which is the heart of why a lot of people get cancer, diabetes, which is responsible for the explosion in diseases. We must do the research. That's why we are students. We must understand why damage is done and how damage is done to our bodies as we move towards overconsumption of processed foods. This is what social cohesion should be about. Is there a sustained national education campaign and community-based education and discourse on domestic abuse? Domestic abuse is expanding in this society. Is there a sustained discourse on gender-based violence, on sex-based violence, and so forth? I see HIV is on the increase. How many people understand and know these things? How many people engage in these discussions? When will we have the beginning of sustained national discourse on education of coastlanders to end the discrimination of the indigenous peoples? Finally, I see Michael looking at his watch, and I know I should be ending, right? And I'm ending. Finally, should we continue to live with the remnants of the colonial and rigged 1980 Constitution? Colonial and rigged 1980 Constitution. What kind of sustained process should we have to produce an indigenous, homegrown constitution that provides for a political system that guarantees respect and rights for minorities and majority groups of the population to equal participation? These are all points that could be used for cross-community discourses. Cohesion is a necessary element for development in the Guyanese context, but we have to take off our ethnic, racial rivalries. Everything I have said belongs in the cohesion discourse. Thank you.
Dr. Wazir has asked, Dr. Wazir Mohamed has asked if we can take his questions now, because he has another engagement. So I will beg the rest of the panelists as well as audience to answer questions now, and so that he can respond appropriately.
Good afternoon, my name is Kareem. I'm the third year economics. Earlier in the presentation, you said that you believe that social cohesion can be properly implemented if the real history is taught. But throughout most of our lives, the regular history that we see in the books is what we're accustomed to. You're taught stuff like there's 6 people, our man became a multicultural society, as our Iranians were the first people, and eventually you have the Chinese and the Europeans and the Africans and East Indians together. So why is it you believe that we're not actually taught things on different rebellions and how we can actually distinguish what's the real history from the fake history? Because where is the missing out? Why is it we only talk about how the people came, but not what they suffered through and what brought us to this point?
Excellent question. That's a very excellent question. He's raising, and we are always told that we have a multicultural society. Yeah? But do we? We have a society in which we live in separate communities, right? In which we travel in minibuses. If they, in some minibuses don't stop in some villages. Some people don't travel with certain drivers based on their ethnicity and stuff like that. Some people don't walk through certain villages after it gets dark because they're afraid. Right? What are they afraid of? And why should they be afraid? How can we claim to be living in a multicultural society, yeah, if we suffer from these fears? And so why do we suffer from these fears? Right? We suffer from these fears because we dehumanize each other, because we don't understand, first of all, how each other came here. Right? The history book tells us, gives us a little glimpse of why we came here, but does not go into detail. Walter Rodney goes into detail in his book, History of the Guyanese Working People. Right? But that book is not used in the schools as a basis for students to study the history. Why? I've always asked myself, why Walter Rodney's book, History of the Guyanese Working People, is not being used in the schools? No one can answer. Why is it his book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, has just gone through its 40th edition? People across the world is using it to understand how Europe underdeveloped Africa, but we're not using it here. Why? Who doesn't want us to understand our history? Do you know why the sugar industry became mainly Indian sugar workers? Is it because Africans refused to be sugar workers? Because they didn't want to be sugar workers? Is it because they're lazy, as part of the history would have us believe? No. It is because they carried out a sustained trade union action against the planter class. And in the sugar strike of 1847-48, because the Portuguese were given favors by the colonial state, they were controlling most of the solvent shop in the country. They refused to give credit to the strikers in order to force them to go back to work. And because you had enough East Indians in the country already to work on the sugar plantations. You see, this thing we call the indentured contract was not created from 1838 when East Indians started to come here. The indentured contract is the draconian laws that tied an East Indian in semi-slave-like condition to plantations. When do you think it was established? In 1848. Right? So they wanted the ex-slaves to go back and work for the wages that they were given. In 1834, at the time of the apprenticeship period. And the slaves said, no, we're not going back there. Good? And they said, well, we are going to leave housing on the shore, because most of the Africans were still residing in plantation housing on the sugar estates until 1848. Good? And that is when the villages became overcrowded. Now, some historians on my side, on my ethnic side, will tell you that East Indians saved sugar industry. There is no truth in that. East Indian indentured labor was brought here not to replace African labor on the plantations, but to supplant them and to cheapen labor. So Africans could not get work on the plantations if there was enough East Indian labor. If the complement of East Indian existed in the plantations. You know, when I have a box of stuff I pick up from the British Archives next to my desk at the university. And in one of those boxes is a piece of writing that showed that in the early 1880s, Africans who could not get work are asking themselves, why don't we go and ask to be indentured so we can get work on the plantation? You see, so we have to understand that history, when I say that the real history is not being taught, that's what I mean. Yes? That history is not being taught. And if we want to understand that history, we have to read my works, Nigel Westmus's works, Francis Drake's works, Walter Rodney works, right? Dr. James Rose, right? Who at one time was the head of the history department here, right? Go back, go to the center, the CRL. I don't know if the CRL still exists. The Caribbean Resource Center Library. Go there. Go and check out the history gazettes. Go and read Leslie Potter talking about the paddy proletariat. What happened to East Indians, right? And how East Indians got land. Do you know how East Indians got the land to plant rice? Because Africans were denied access to land beyond the Crown Dam. They made the asking price per acre for land beyond the Crown Dam, $10 per acre in 100 acre blocks after slavery ended. And then after the sugar industry went into crisis in the 1880s, you had the Royal Commission in 1897-98. And they said, what we could do with all this labor that is being excreted out from the sugar industry. And so the law was changed so that the asking price for those same lands that they were asking $10 for was dropped to 25 cents and 15 cents per acre. And so the East Indians who were excreted away from sugar, right, was able to go take up the lands in the Mahaika Creek and all those riverine communities. One more point. We always would see how sugar is being closed. How many of you know how the Black Bush Polar scheme was established? Recent, right? It's in the 60s. The Black Bush Polar scheme was established because labor was being excreted away from Port Moran because the Port Moran sugar estate had to be closed. And so they had to find a means of existence for those sugar workers who were losing their jobs at Port Moran. And that's how Black Bush was established. See, when I talk about history, right, this is what I mean. Because if you know that history, you would intervene in the discussion on sugar. Yeah? You would say, well, if you can close the sugar industry now, let us engage in a discussion so that we can properly diversify the economy. Because that is what we need. Instead of one crop, we need 1,000 crops. Let 1,000 flowers bloom. See what I'm saying? That is what cohesion can